Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I feel I've done my bit. Nigel Farage resigning as UKIP leader this morning, claiming credit for Leave's victory in the referendum. His departure momentarily took the focus away from the Tory leadership campaigns. At her launch, Energy Minister Andrea Leadsom told the public not to be afraid in post-Brexit Britain. And in a deliberate contrast with Theresa May, she said that EU nationals living in the UK now should be told straight away they can stay. The first round of voting for the 5 declared candidates is on Tuesday. Our political editor, Gary Gibbon, has been following the day's events.
Another party leader gone in the wake of the referendum. But Nigel Farage is going of his own accord.
The leader of UKIP, Nigel Farage.
After the referendum victory, he says he can't top that. His work is done.
I now feel that I've done my bit, that I couldn't possibly achieve more than we managed to get in that referendum, and so I feel it's right that I should now stand aside as leader of UKIP.
Andrew, just one last time. Thank you very much.
Moments later, just round the corner, the Tory leadership contender who critics are dubbing the UKIP candidate, Andrea Leadsom, is launching her campaign with words of comfort to traumatised Remain supporters.
Many people are shocked at the result, but they really shouldn't be. What I would like to say to them is, please, don't be afraid. We haven't lost our senses. We haven't stopped caring about each other. We haven't stopped loving our families and our children. We haven't stopped loving our country either. We've just rediscovered our freedom.
Mrs Leadsom's been getting a big helping hand from Nigel Farage's biggest ally, the businessman Aaron Banks, major donor to UKIP and founder of Leave.eu. Mr Banks has emailed supporters of the Leave campaign, UKIP voters included, saying they should lobby for an Andrea Leadsom victory. And Tory MPs who backed Remain say their associations are being inundated with emails saying the only choice for us as a family of Conservatives is Andrea Leadsom. She was asked today if she was uncomfortable about having a prominent UKIP backer.
Am I concerned? I'm not really concerned about anything. I am who I am. I stand up for myself, and I hope that I'm completely honest. And if anyone wants to ask me a question, they can. And I have no allegiances to UKIP.
Is she taking any money from a major UKIP donor, Aaron Banks?
Absolutely not.
Does he have any role whatsoever?
None whatsoever.
Did he try?
None whatsoever.
Why do you think he's interested?
No, well, come on. You know what the game is all about. The truth is...
Why is he interested?
I have no idea. You want to go and ask him these questions, all right? I can have you a very clear... No, hang on.
Why does he think
very clear statement. Very clear statement. No donations, no support, no involvement. This is about the Conservatives picking the next Prime Minister.
Along with other Tory leadership candidates, Andrea Leadsom rejected the Home Secretary Theresa May's proposal that the rights of EU citizens in Britain to stay here should be part of the negotiation with the EU. In the Commons, Theresa May's idea was defended by one backbench supporter, attacked by 36 MPs.
This has been raised by the Home Secretary, and it is a catastrophic error of judgment.
You ready for lunch?
UKIP will now start a leadership election. Nigel Farage believes the party political landscape could look very different for all parties in just a couple of years' time. He believes his campaigning on immigration won the referendum, turning out poorer voters who don't normally make it to the polling station. The official Leave campaign tried to keep Nigel Farage off the television for fear he'd alienate the middle-class supporters their Tories lured to leave. But it was his electoral success, leading UKIP, that panicked David Cameron into holding a referendum. And history will judge him as the leader of a smaller party who packed an historic punch.
Gary joins us live now from Westminster. Gary, with your ear to those closed doors, what's going on in the hustings?
Yes, the first hustings has just finished. Tory MPs with all the candidates in front of them. I didn't get the impression, talking to some Tory MPs who were in the room, that it was an absolute game changer. I think if anybody comes out with a sense of their destiny slightly altered, it probably is Michael Gove. A number of MPs came back after meeting the activists over the weekend, saying the activists weren't terribly impressed by the way in which Michael Gove launched his campaign. And I get the impression, and even listening at the door, you could tell lower levels of applause for him. One MP who was holding up a sort of Eurovision-style scorecard as people were speaking inside gave him a 6 and the others 8s and 9s. There's a survey out tonight of Tory members, self-selecting, very important to emphasise, which puts Andrew Leadsom and Theresa May more or less level pegging. I think we've found in the past that this particular survey tends to be a little bit skewed towards the more ardent, the more zealous amongst Tories. So I suspect Andrew Leadsom doesn't have support quite in that margin, but it's probably looking at the moment as though she could be the runner-up when we've gone through all the rounds in the House of MPs.
Farage gone. What of UKIP after Farage?
It all depends who wins the Tory leadership contest and what sort of government that happens here, I think, to an extent. They could go for as they might see it, a sellout Tory leader. They're already talking of Theresa May like that, and Nigel Farage talks about the narrative of betrayal. Or if there was a Tory government that was very much in their mould, they might start renaming, rebranding, and going for Labour big time.
Gary Gibbon in Westminster. Well, we're joined now by David Davis MP. He backs Theresa May in the Conservative leadership contest. What's wrong with Andrea Leadsom? Wouldn't she be the natural David Davis candidate?
It isn't a question of what's wrong. I mean, she's new, she's inexperienced, not been in the cabinet at all, been a minister for a couple of years. So this is going to be a really important time, hugely important negotiation about to happen. And Theresa May's been actually in the most dangerous, if you like, of political jobs for the last 6 years, a holder of the office of Home Secretary. And so I think she'll do a very good job of negotiating and deliver what we need.
Can I ask you a cheap question? Is this
whatever
David Davis bidding for a comeback as a good Brexitite in the cabinet, just what she'll need, or is it man of principle stands up and says she's the woman?
I hardly think it's a bid for a comeback. Not many people have voluntarily given up their career. I have, and it's not a bid for a comeback. But you know, she is a very, very capable performer. She's a safe pair of hands. But most importantly, she accepts the mandate of the British people, that Brexit has got to happen. And indeed, when I spoke to her, I said to her, when she spontaneously told me that she saw that control of immigration was one of the most important things.
Well, there are 400,000 French in Britain at the moment. There are 200,000 Italians. And they're very anxious, really, as to whether they're going to be able to stay. And Mrs May is unable to give them any guarantee, whereas, or in terms of actually saying they can stay. Mrs Leadsom has been absolutely straightforward. The whole lot can stay.
Well, with the greatest respect, Mrs Leadsom, this demonstrates the difference in experience at negotiating. What Mrs May is saying, what Theresa May is saying...
Well, you don't want to negotiate with the French population in Britain, do you?
Wait a minute. No. What's been said, and lots of things are being thrown around the chamber. You carried a bit of it earlier. Oh, you know, holding people as bargaining chips. Actually, the way to avoid holding people as bargaining chips is to do the whole thing together. You know, Brits abroad, EU citizens here, and actually give them all rights. That's what I want to see, all of them given rights, but do it together, and then nobody gets picked off. You don't get bargaining chips used as the term was offered.
But then Mrs May could have said, I want to give everybody rights, but I want to do it in one go. Not a bit. She said, I really cannot guarantee that.
No, she doesn't guarantee anything before going to a negotiation. This is a huge negotiation we're talking about. And
what say does Europe have over us saying we want to keep our EU citizens here?
Are very clear. We'll deal with everything together. I mean, we've got to make sure as well that we are looking after our own people abroad, and there's over 1 million of those. So it's a very, very large numbers, and we do it responsibly. We do it sensibly. You'll see this through this leadership battle. You see it in all leadership battles. As it were, the pretender sort of picks off little bits and pieces without thinking about the real consequences. That's what's happened here.
And you're betting as to what happens?
The outcome? Oh, it's going to be close, but I think Theresa will win. But, you know, these things, you know, favourites don't often win, as you know from my own experience. But, you know, I think Theresa's the best candidate for the job, and I hope it shows.
David Davis, thank you very much indeed. Cathy?
Thanks, John. Well, to discuss our top story, the departure of Nigel Farage, UKIP's former Deputy Chair, Suzanne Evans, joins me now. Suzanne, you've had your ups and downs with Nigel Farage, to say the least. You glad to see him go? Well, you know, my ups and downs with Nigel Farage have been really of Nigel's making. I think history will judge Nigel Farage very kindly, much kinder than some of his critics have over this recent referendum campaign. He is without doubt the man who has reinvigorated UKIP over the past few years, and the man who has brought about the referendum with the support of UKIP activists.
OK, what's he done to British society, then? He's been a very divisive figure. I just cite, for example, that Breaking Point poster that he posed with. Very controversial. Could that perhaps be partly to blame for this rise in racial hate crime incidents that the police say they're now seeing?
That poster, I wouldn't have published that poster, not a chance. I thought it was divisive, yes. But that's not all that Nigel Farage has done. I think there are ways in which he could have campaigned slightly differently. But I don't think, let's not that take away from him the fact that he was instrumental in getting this referendum and getting that mandate for the British people to actually leave the European Union.
Would you accept that he stoked tensions over immigration, though?
Not deliberately. No, absolutely not.
Inadvertently?
If tensions were stoked inadvertently, that's fine, but I don't believe he did that deliberately for a moment, no.
But that's having a terrible impact on society, isn't
Look,
it?
the fact is, Cathy, 70% of the country are concerned about immigration. 60% of those are 60% of ethnic minority voters are concerned about immigration themselves. I think actually it's something that has to be taken seriously. And the fact is, the main political parties did not take it seriously for a very long time. And that in itself stoked tensions. You have to debate these issues, but beyond that, you have to act on them as well. The fact they haven't been acted on has caused trouble.
Let's cut to the chase then. Can you persuade party bosses to overturn your suspension? You're currently suspended from UKIP, and run for leader yourself.
I don't know. I've always said if Nigel Farage stood down, then I would very much like to run as leader of UKIP, and I certainly hope that's possible. I am suspended at the moment. I spoke out against homophobia being displayed by one particular party member and was suspended for 6 months. I think that now Nigel has gone, and I gather the chairman has gone as well, then I think we've got new people at the top, and I think my suspension should be looked at again.
And if it's not, I mean, there's a lot of UKIPers backing Andrea Leadsom for the Tory leadership. Would you perhaps defect to the Tories? Is that possible?
If Andrea Leadsom becomes Prime Minister, then I think it would be very important to have a leader of UKIP who can be part of a cross-party team to make sure that we actually do leave the European Union.
What do you mean, you're eyeing a seat in government now?
No, not at all. Absolutely not. I'm saying as leader of UKIP, I think I was part of the Vote Leave, the official Vote Leave campaign, which operated on a cross-party basis. And I think we need a new leader of UKIP who can continue in that vein to work collaboratively to make sure that we do get out.
Suzanne Evans, thank you very much for joining us.
I've been getting away with it